345 players. This is the largest game of diplomacy ever played. It's World of Chaos, and it didn't just take that record, it smashed that record. It is almost 200 players larger than 7 Days of Chaos, which was the previous record holder for that. It also basically broke Discord in order to have this game played. Usually, in order to play a Chaos game, you would give everyone a role to do with their country, or in order to play any diplomacy game. In this game, the number of roles that would have been required is over the total limit of Discord's role count, so they had to program a special bot to be able to even play this game at all. It was absolutely insane. I am here with another player from this game to commentate it. Hi, Ezio.
Hello, hello.
And which of these 345 countries did you play here?
Is it bad that I don't remember? I was in South America. I know which dot it is on the map. I can point to it. Is it Amazon?
I think
yeah.
Yeah,
let's go.
Okay,
right.
So for reference as well, we played this like 6 months ago. So it is... It's been in the backlog for a while, and I have basically spent the last 2 days reading over everything that happened in the game so that I can actually revise as to what happened, because in these Chaos games, so much happens. It's absolutely insane. But anyway, this was Ezio's power, Amazon, and I believe you chose that power as well, right?
I chose a number of powers like this one. I was definitely happy with it.
Mm-hmm. And was there any reasoning for you choosing it?
Well, Amazon is an early letter of the alphabet. They're tended to be near the top of the drop-down selection where they list out the things. Real talk, I like this power because it has neighbors, so it has relatively straightforward expansion. You can just take dots as needed. It wasn't on a coast. I really didn't want to be on a coastal power like Morristock or Bellum or whatever. Other powers that I selected were things like New Courland and Barbados. There were some Caribbean ones that are islands, which I think are fine. Because everyone's building fleets in those positions, it's basically like being on land. And then I selected some other stuff in Indonesia for similar reasons. But I really wanted to be in these like dot dense regions. And this one, having enough neighbors meant that I wasn't immediately going to die necessarily, because I can work stuff out. Whereas if I'm in a position where I'm in like Bellum, for example, I think there's very much a world where just the two neighbors coordinate to eliminate you instantly. So I didn't want to be in a position like that. And then I also didn't want to be in a position like Sao Sebasto, like that one, because it just borders Morristock. Actually, in this case, Morristock also just borders them. And that just seems like a really tough relationship to navigate. And I wanted no part of that. So, yeah.
So you wanted plenty of neighbors, plenty of potential options is the important thing here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I do want to expand on that being on a coast thing, because it kind of informed my decision on where I wanted to be as well. There was a game we played a while ago, an 81-player game, which was, again, based on the Imperial Diplomacy map. I don't think I've mentioned this yet, but this is the Imperial Diplomacy map with every supply center being its own power. And I was playing as Ghent in that game, and I am a coastal power there. I formed an alliance with my neighbors. We allied the people inland and thought, okay, we'll build fleets then and go out, because that's what people are wanting us to do. And then as soon as the fleets were down, everyone goes, okay, they're easy targets, let's go murder them, right? So you do not really want to be in a position like that, because you become a very, very easy target the moment you put down a fleet. And if you refuse to put down a fleet, you also become a bit of a target, because people go, hey, you're refusing to work with us by not putting down a fleet. It leaves you in a pretty horrible situation.
Yep. I saw that dynamic in our previous games. I've seen that dynamic in the 7 Days of Chaos game as well, where if you're on a coast, if you don't build a fleet, you're antagonizing people, and I didn't like that. So I appreciated being landlocked, where I have to build an army, gives me natural protection and expansion locally whilst not pissing anyone off. So,
Yeah.
yep.
You would also think that it gives you an easy first turn, right? An easy build turn because you don't have any options. But actually, it doesn't in this game.
I mean, yeah, easy because I technically don't have to make a decision as far as what unit I'm building. But winter of this game is one of the most important phases of any game ever.
Mhm.
Like, winter of these first of these variants is insane.
Yep. All right. Well, before we get to that, I will talk about my own power as well then. And my own power is one that should not be on this board. There are 3 powers in this game that, on a standard Imperial Diplomacy board, don't exist as supply centers. They're provinces without a supply center in them. One of them is me, Kanem-Bornu. And that's because at one point I made a video called The Evolution of Imperial Diplomacy. We had Flare on, and they are the creator of Imperial Diplomacy. They, I mean, they have made many versions of the map at this point. But they were talking to me about all of the different versions of the game up until then. And I played in the A1 playtest, the very first playtest, as Bornu, a power who was located here with 4 supply centers, and you can go and watch that video if you want to. Immediately after that playtest, Bornu was removed from the game because it was completely busted, and it has never been seen again. At some point, Mali was introduced as a power and then removed again. Basically, they have too many problems with powers in this area of Africa, so they keep removing them again. But I have always had an affinity for Bornu because I played it at first. At some point, Flare added in the province Kanem-Bornu again, which has the boundaries of the original Bornu power, but is a non-supply center. And while I was talking to them about the history of this variant, they said, hey, if we ever do a chaos game like this, where every power is a different, every SC is a different power, I will add an SC here and you can play Bornu again. I was like, I will take you up on that. And I did. And so I am Kanem-Bornu. And not only is it good in that I would like to play Kanem-Bornu, I also kind of like the position because it's not on a coast, as you mentioned. There are some things I don't like about the position. The number of neighbors is one. I don't love that I have so many people because if I leave that dot, someone is likely to come in. But that's a problem for the future. At least I don't have to worry about being forced to build a fleet. I'm curious,
Yeah.
Ezio, would you like to be in this position if you were choosing powers?
I looked at this one sort of like it was my friend's wife. Like I knew this province was off limits, so I didn't look into what the position would look like even a little bit. I knew you wanted to be Bornu, so I
Okay,
didn't. That
fair.
said, looking at it, I think it's a fine spot. Like it's it's a little more restricted than I'd like in that all of the places you can go to are supply centers except for one. So someone is going to get pissed off probably if you make a move. Knowing you, I bet you just don't move ever and you just sit there and then no one ever attacks you and then you just like but I would have an issue with this cuz like if I want to make progress, I don't know, maybe I would just like actually attack someone in spring. Um but that seems scary. I don't know. It's an interesting one that I like. The impassable to your north is, I think, nice. I think that's very good because it keeps you a little safer.
Yeah, I think so too. And something important that Ezio said just there, I think that you might hold for this whole game. The nice thing about this board being so massive and us being in completely separate locations, right, is that we have very little idea of what's going on outside of our continent. There is going to be a lot going on in this game that we unfortunately can't talk about because we just weren't there, right? Like, what happens with evens in this game? I have no idea. I did not look at that province once over the entire course of the game. So I could not tell you what's happening over there. There are other people who have made videos on this game, and I will link to all of them in the description. But one of the nice things about this is that Ezio and I have completely separate views of separate areas, and like basically what we're doing almost doesn't overlap at all through this game. So I'm not sure if you ever
God,
looked at
you
my
know what's
position on
crazy? I don't even
these.
think that's true, Captain Meme. I hate to break to you, but I think what was going on in Africa really did affect my game.
All right, well, we'll get to that in a second. Before that happens,
Yeah.
I do want
Oh
to
god.
highlight. I mentioned there are 3 SCs on this map that shouldn't exist in standard Imperial Diplomacy. The other 2 are Bavaria, which was added because in that 81 player game, the Bavarian wheel was a huge thing. Basically, the SCs around Bavaria created their own alliance, and that was very instrumental in everything that happened in that game, or a lot of what happened in that game in any case, especially to me. Um, and there was a player who, I think it's actually the person who ran 7 Days of Chaos, who lives in Bavaria, who basically made a petition to add Bavaria to the map because it's super important. And Flare went to him and said, okay, if you call a coin flip, I will add Bavaria to the map. And Thibs took that offer, and Bavaria was added to the map because he called it correctly. The other one that was added to the map is, and I apologize if I'm going to brutally murder the pronunciation of this, Aotearoa, which is, of course, New Zealand. This province, in normal Imperial Diplomacy, is not a supply center and gets so much flack for not being a supply center because it is completely pointless. No one ever goes there except for as a meme. There are no supply centers adjacent to it. The South Pacific Ocean basically does everything that province is supposed to do, so it has no reason to exist. And it was such a meme that someone asked for it, please, please, just for this game, can you add a supply center there so people stop complaining about it not being a supply center? And Flare did that too. So there is a player in Aotearoa. I don't remember who that player was, I'm really sorry, but keep an eye on them through the game as well. Alright. And I think that...
Just be a lesson, everyone. Flare actually is a man of the people. If you want something, send him a ping. He'll make it happen.
Absolutely. But yeah, so I think that covers basically everything from before the game, so we haven't got to any negotiation yet. Okay, and so now we are ready to enter into winter 1641. It is 1641, right? That this one starts in because it starts on a build phase, so it starts the phase before.
I think 42. Yeah, it's like 1900 start versus 1901. Yeah. So I think 41.
Yeah, which is of course pre-builds here. So Ezio, do you want to start off with what negotiation was happening pre-builds in your area?
All right, disclaimers. This was 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So unclear exactly what's happening in exactly which phase ahead of time, whatever. The main thing is that I'm trying not to die. My position is a chaotic position. I have a lot of neighbors. Let's make sure that my neighbors are friendly and happy and like me. And I have yeah, so let's just get started with that. And my immediate neighbors are all pretty chill. Japura and Madeira are both solid, and then Bellum is totally fine. And then Kalina, I remember not being super active. And then the other guys I don't really care about. Everyone else is so far away from me, right? Like this immediate region is what I'm locked in about. These people are quite important. And so I remember in these other large chaos games, big alliances have been very successful. And I have done a pretty good job running larger alliances. In the first one, I was very much the attention center of the Nordic alliance up in Scandinavia, the Vikings. And then in 7 Days of Chaos, I took a backseat earlier on, but then I started being the head of the Turkey Alliance, and I figured I was gonna keep an eye out, look for an opportunity to do something similar here. Um, Worth noting, this game had a really neat mechanic as far as winning. And it wasn't about having the most supply centers at the end of the game or reaching a specific number necessarily. There was an odd scoring mechanic where by being large throughout the game, you gained points every turn. So it really incentivized simply being large. And so that meant that for my end, I just wanted to get big quickly and then stay big and not, I didn't need to worry about like positioning for a solo rush the way that I did in 7 Days of Chaos. This one I could just grow normally in a standard manner. Furthermore, there was a vassalization mechanic, and I figured that would make a lot of sense for me just to get big and then vassalize my friends and let them get good scores, and I got a great score. And so I was hopeful that I would just find people who were happy with that, and that we could just go along and have a nice, simple game. And so I was racking my what?
Sorry, we should probably explain the vassalization mechanic very briefly, which is it is to do with the scoring system as well. Basically, if you get to, I think it was 2 dots or is it 3 dots, you're allowed to vassalize other players, and they give you points by being vassalized, and you give them a small amount of points by having them as your vassal. So there was this potential strategy of letting one person grow and then vassalizing a bunch of other people. That one person gets a lot of points, and all the small people get a little bit extra, right? That's going to be important, I think.
Yeah, the way the math worked out, it was actually pretty interesting. I remember doing this early on in the game, and I believe the way that it worked was if you were someone's vassal, then you got half of the points that they got, and you gave them 1 extra point for being vassalized to them. So if someone was bigger than you and the two of you vassalized, as far as a point perspective, the vassal was actually getting far more points from it than the liege lord was. And so there were rules about how many people you could have vassalized. It was that you couldn't, the total supply centers of your vassals couldn't be greater than your own supply centers. And I figured out that the most efficient way to distribute supply centers amongst people was to have one person be as big as possible and have everyone else on one dot. I don't tell this to anyone. This is math that I do myself in my void, as I just realized, but that is what I am hopeful that I can set up something like this. And so as I'm literally thinking about this, like what is a good mechanism? Like what's an alliance that makes sense to have like one really strong member and have everyone else be weak? Just like really, really weak and small and kind of pointless. And so I was trying to think of like any fantasy series that I could think about, but too many of them have the like everyone is important and inspiring and like you can't ignore them or whatever. I was trying to think of like what's a good way that's like, yeah, there's one important thing and nobody else really matters. And bees came to mind. Bees seem pretty great because there is a queen bee that is relevant and nobody else. Everyone else is a worker bee just in a hive. And I don't remember if I started the bee stuff necessarily or if I just saw someone mention bees and then I just like start riffing on it and memeing on it until it becomes real. But I remember being very interested and very excited in a bee mentality for this area of South America. And if we could get good branding, strong early on, and start spreading this, I'm confident it'll set fire everywhere and it'll spread around all of South America. And this starts happening quite quickly. I think people saw in the previous large Chaos games that if there was a large alliance that formed and you didn't get in there quickly, then you might just be cut out of it, and then suddenly you're at the lower end of it. And this is actually something that I was anticipating happening in this game. So we started the Bee Alliance, and then basically what happened was me and a couple of my neighbors, I think Japura and Madeira, were the first ones where we put a bee emoji in our names as we started talking about the Hive, that we're going to be the founding members of the Hive, we're going to make this happen. And then a bunch of other people start putting the bee emoji in their name. And I forget exactly how many people did it, but it got really big, really fast, and I realized like immediately, oh my god, too many people got in way too fast, and we can't expand anymore because it was everyone in South America,
Mhm.
and I was like, this game starts and I have work. I have a full-time job that I am doing, so I'm not able to like do anything. This is just in a forum, right? So there's no like a form that I can set up for an actual like admittance policy. There's nothing. A bunch of people added it, and then other people started drawing maps saying what was happening. And then it's like people got locked into the hive, and I want a lot of people in the hive, but also I want the authority to say who's in the hive and who isn't, and people shouldn't be able to just put an emoji in their name and join the hive. And so it was like it was a really weird thing because it was exactly what I was hoping to happen, and then it went all wrong really quickly.
Mhm.
So great, quite a great plan by my end. So that was my early game discussions in the hive, Captain Meme. How did things go over in your game?
Okay, so before we even look at this, I do want to mention, so Cormontin in this game is Emu, who was Brazov in 7 Days of Chaos. He makes beautiful maps, right? And throughout this game, he was acting as a sort of journalist, going around to everyone and asking, what's the alliance in your area? And then making these beautiful maps. And this is exactly what Ezio is talking about when he says the bees, because he went and like Emu went over here as an emissary and said, "Hey, what are the alliances in your regions?" And basically everyone said, "I'm in the beehive." Right? And we actually have that alliance map from the very first one because Emu sent it to me. And you can see Ezio's alliance over here.
I will say, it is much better to be part of the hive than it is to be not part of the hive.
Mhm.
So that is great. I would much rather be in this than being part of one of those other ones. But again, as you see, there's one that's aptly named the Hornet's Nest, and we'll talk about that. We'll get there, okay? The spectacled players. God, I hate. Yeah, we'll talk about this. Meme, you should spend some time talking about your stuff.
Yes. So I'm gonna go back over to my region now and talk about my my stuff. Oh boy. So, moving over to Africa, I am Kanem-Bornu, as you notice, and my initial instinct is exactly the same as Ezio's. I want to make sure that I don't die. I'm going to establish good relations with my neighbors. And the immediate people who were online were Agadez and House Estates, which actually works pretty well because that would, if I firm up an alliance with these two initially, then that gives me a potential direction to go, right? So I get talking to Agadez, I get talking to House Estates. We both, we basically all agree that we are very much on the same page. Agadez is a player called Tim, who is incredibly active. So in Seven Dock, there was a player who would read every single chat in the entire game. In this game, they drew Goa. And this is going to be a minor spoiler. They were in this game as well. They die in year one, so they are not particularly relevant to our story here, but they were very relevant to Seven Dock because they were reading and spying on everything, right? Agadez, Tim, is our equivalent in Africa of that. He would make notes on what everyone was doing everywhere in the world and come back with a bit of a report, right? And we kind of said, hey, we need a report on what's going on in Africa. We can ignore everything that's happening everywhere else. But he would still go into other people's chats and just be like, okay, I'm figuring out what's going on over here as well. and whatnot. He was kind of incredible. And it was a real relief for me to be allied with him because, of course, if you're allied with someone who's doing that, you can just sit back a little bit and know that they're keeping an eye on all of these other places and things that could potentially go wrong for you, right? You really want to have someone like that in your alliance. uh,
Yeah, but just as a word of caution, some people don't want people like that in their alliance, um, because these people can have undue influence. So if someone wants to control the alliance, they might want to kill the person who reads every message anywhere, because everyone else is going to listen to the person who reads everything, not the one who wants to control it. So just be careful about being obvious that you're everywhere.
Yeah. That is very fair. Ezio, are you one of the people who would kill Agadez in this situation then?
I mean, do you remember what I did to Helsingfors?
I do. That was from the 81 player
Because
game.
Helsingfors read everything. He was the original player. And if I had other places to expand, I probably wouldn't have. But no, I'm just saying, be careful about it. Some people, probably not me, but some people would.
Anyway, I really like Tim Agadez. So we got on like a house on fire immediately. I went to House Estates and I said, hey, let's buddy up. And they were like, yes, that sounds great to me. These two players were getting on really well off the bat, Mandara and Banda. They were both chatting a lot. So I think Mandara was Hannah and Banda was Scouthai. Sorry if I'm pronouncing those wrong. I will probably refer to most people by their country names through this. And we have another important person over here, which is Hawara, who was Swilliu. Hawara comes in while I'm doing this discussion with Agadez and House Estates, and basically goes, hey, I chose a power near Meme because I wanted to be near Meme. Let's everyone around Meme ally up together. I read that message and was like, oh my god. Do you mean everyone around me or everyone around me including me? Because those are very different things, right? Especially in how
That's
they
a
consider
message.
And they were like, oh, no, I want you in the alliance as well. I'm like, oh, thank God. Okay. I'm okay with that. I think that sounds like a great idea. So sorry. So Hawara pitches this alliance of themselves, Darfur, Mandara, House Estates, Agadez, and myself. And of course, us three on this side are already allied. I was going, yeah, I like you, Hawara, that sounds good. Darfur wasn't really around very much, but when they did come online, they said, yes, sure. And Mandara saw everyone else saying yes. I think Mandara really wanted to be in the same alliance as Banda, but they saw everyone else saying yes in this area and were like, yeah, okay, I'll do it too. Because if you say no, when you have three people adjacent to you who have already agreed to be part of that alliance, that is a bit of a, like, the death wish, right? You have to join that alliance. And at some point...
Yeah, if you're the only one who isn't part of the alliance and all of your neighbors are, obviously you're the one that's gonna die, so...
Yeah, and doubly so here because if they had joined the alliance with Banda, they have one support hold from Banda against two support attacks from the players nearby. So that wouldn't have gone too well for them. So they join us as well, and at some point Azande gets included. I don't remember how Azande got included, but they did. Azande is a really interesting player in this because they are a gimmick player. It happens sometimes in these games that someone decides to play in a very particular way with a certain gimmick. And Azande's gimmick was they would post a puzzle, like some kind of cryptic, really difficult to solve puzzle in the public chat every single turn. And whoever solved that puzzle would get control of their move for that turn. And I initially see this and like, what is the point of having someone like that in your alliance? Because they are never going to do what you want them to do, right? But the upside to this is that Agadez, Tim, was an incredible puzzle solver and would solve it first basically every time. So it ends up working out perfectly fine. So this ends up becoming our alliance. We discuss names for a bit and we end up deciding on Landlocked League. Which we then shorten to Lock because Landlocked will not fit in the name of in a Discord name, along with our personal country names. So yeah, we become Lock, and there are unlike South America where you saw the Hive before, and basically no one else. That's not entirely true. There were a couple of
No, you can't say no one. But the Hive had one dominant. There was one major and then a bunch of counter alliances. In Africa, though, what was it like?
Yeah. So in Africa, everyone forms these kind of very small regional alliances instead of one giant thing that's expanding out. I think that's partially because Um, no one really pushed for there to be a mega alliance. Like, you would. I say you generally need someone to be pushing to make a mega alliance, but I guess that wasn't really the case in your area, was it? You said it happened completely naturally.
It happened mostly naturally. It was the case that I was aware that it was an easy sell with clean, simple branding, and so I anticipated it going quickly. But no one was like, I certainly wasn't actively recruiting. I don't think Japura or Madeira were, but they also weren't like quiet about being part of the hive. And then I think if people asked, they were like, "Yeah, go for it, hop in."
Mhm.
So think that's what happened.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, Africa was a very different story. People were basically talking in their neighbor groups initially, and they didn't stop talking in their neighbor groups. We got Congo Line, which is these 5 players down here. That was the one Mandara really wanted to join, but didn't end up joining. We got Guinea Pigs, which are these players here. They are probably the smallest alliance in Africa. It's just 4 of them. And honestly, if I was that alliance, I would be terrified because that looks suspiciously similar to the position I was in that 81 player game and just got brutally murdered. um, so, yeah, but they decide to stick as their foursome and not really recruit anyone else in. I think they tried to get Cormonton in at some point, but Cormonton decides not to join them for reasons that will be apparent with the next alliance that is here, which is the Mega Alliance of Africa, Western Star. This is all of these players. I think maybe even Cabo Verde as well. So I think this was another hive situation where everyone there was a small group that formed around Mali. Mali was Tasnica, who is a very strong diplomacy player. They were in the winning World Cup team from the 2012 World Cup, the longest game of all time. They basically started forming an alliance, and then it just kept expanding to include all of these players. And so when the guinea pigs approached Cormonton about joining them, Cormonton was like, I would prefer not to die. I will join Western Star instead. Right. And then over this side, we have Evergreen, which is these players. They name themselves after the infamous ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal. We have Pirate Parley, which is this group of players down here, which the main thing I remember about them is that there's another alliance over here that called itself Pirates, and they were constantly getting confused for most of the game. And finally, there were 2 minor alliances down here that I don't remember the names of, but they were at each other's throats for as long as they existed. So they're not going to be particularly relevant to us, but they will be. They will come into it later. And we can see all of this on Emu's map. So we've got Locke in the middle, that is my alliance. We've got Congo Line, Guinea Pigs, Western Star, Mutapa, Marina, Pirate Parley, Evergreen. Oh, and Unnamed Alliance at the top, which is supposedly an alliance, but did not stick together very long. Okay. I think that basically covers everything for Africa in the very early game. There is a lot more that happens before moves, but not that much that's relevant
before
to
builds. Yeah.
There is actually a lot more that happens before builds, but
yeah, because now we have to start talking about how are things gonna work, right? So we've got the hive, and I look at the hive, and we've got something like 20 plus people that have all said they're in the hive. And when you look at what's in South America, there formed 2 other alliances that were explicitly anti-hive. You've got the Hornets, which kill bees, and you've got the Spectacled Bears, which eat bees. This was intentional on both of their parts, because part of the hive spreading and getting so big so fast, with me being very much the face of it, meant that people reacted strongly against this because people look at my history with alliance play in these games and I guess said they don't want any part of it because Ezio alliances do so badly or something. I don't really get it.
I don't think that's true. I think it's that Ezio alliances invariably end up being the antagonists of the story in all of our games. Because I come across as the small hero fighting against injustice, and you actually do alliance play really well, which means that your alliances tend to be huge and unstoppable, which makes them look like the big bad guy, right? And I think that sort of narrative absolutely feeds into the way that people view your alliances in these games. And people are like, I'll take down the big bad guy at the start of this game and get a medal or something, right?
Yeah, my alliances tend to be stable and solid and grow and push in normal manners. Sure, whatever. Point is, we have enemies now, which is both good and bad. It's good because you've got potential to expand. It's bad because I don't want anyone to be fighting us. Particular I want to talk about the spectacle bears because they're the ones that are actually close to me that I actually care about, and I need to figure out how to get them to not want to attack me. And that's a big pain because if like Pamurbo builds an army and moves into Karib, it's just very annoying for my early games, so I don't want that to happen. Um, so what? Other stuff that's going on. We've mentioned that Africa started to form this big star, the Western Star, and the pirates in the Caribbean are also forming their big alliance. And I'm like, hey, if I want my alliance to like be successful in the long run, we really are going to need to have fleets in this area. Gulf of Paria, Guiana Currents would be really important for us to control, both to keep our eastern front safe against incursions from Africa and also from the north because the Caribbean can attack us. And so I would really like to have these guys build fleets. I honestly can't remember if I succeed or not. I don't. Yeah, I can't remember if I try or not, but I really try to get them to like be friends because these are two of the people I would actually like to be part of the hive instead of like the horde of people to our south. Because if you look at the hive, they went all the way down and I'm like, I don't care about any of those people, like or whatever. Like, no, whatever. And so I start thinking about the hive, and I'm like, what if we federalize it similarly to how we federalize the turkeys? Because the Turkey alliance got far too big to be handled by a single point, and I'm hopeful that if I kind of split the hive into a north and a south, we stay safe, we have influence still, things can work out, but it means that I can maybe keep some of the heat off of the northern hive because if the hornets are the bigger threat to the alliance as a whole, and I'm hopeful that we can keep them focused on the southern hive instead of the northern hive, or just work together with the other hive and still kill it, but then it's still somewhat localized or people have like their point of contact. The main person was Downpour, was the like face of the southern hive, I remember, and so we got to a point pretty quickly where it was going to be me in the north and Downpour in the south. I forget if this was pre or post builds, but certainly was the case before moves start going in. So I guess we talk about it here.
Do you remember which country Downpour was playing? Never mind. It's fine.
It was a blue one, so it could be Sao Paulo. Oh wait, maybe it was Chirpa. It was that green one. I don't remember, but he was somewhere down here.
I think it was probably this one.
Yeah, Chiripa. That sounds plausible. It was one of the ones that was down there, man. It was far from a. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Downpour ended up being the big part of the Southern Hive. Oh jeez. And basically what I try to pitch is everyone who's in the Hive, who's on the coast, should build a fleet. Everyone who's inland should build an army. Because that's kind of it. And that's one of the big things that I remember just like, hey, let's just have this be the case at the start, right? Like, that seems pretty simple, especially because the Hive is only on the eastern coast. The western coast isn't really part of the Hive yet. And so if we're worried about Africa and like South Atlantic Ocean, we should get fleets down to go and contest that. Yeah, that's I think basically where things get to in for the builds, and I think we can start hearing about Africa, and then maybe we can see moves.
did
Ever.
you get any pushback to asking people on the coast to build fleets?
From honest to God Hive members, um, I remember that Bellum was a bit worried, but I'm fairly confident they were okay with it. I remember that Sao Sebastio and Moristad had issues with each other, for obvious reasons, but I think they agreed to both build fleets. And then just they didn't agree to get out officially, I remember, but they agreed to both build fleets, which was the important part.
Mm-hmm.
I think if anyone didn't build fleets, we'll tell, and then I can remember how we handled them because
Okay,
it was pretty brutal in the opening. It was like, hey, if you didn't build a fleet, guess what? There's a bunch of inland armies and your neighbors who are happy to fight for your dot. Like if you fail to do it, it's in everyone's interest individually to cannibalize you instantly, and we are all going to be growth starved. So we got to make stuff happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about why you were worried about Africa for a second, then. Because this is to do with memes, and memes arise in every single one of these Chaos games, and they end up being quite consequential in quite a number of them, right? Especially in this game, where people would catch bits of conversations that other people were having, but would definitely not read the whole thing because there are 25 press channels. Oh my god, we didn't even mention that. This is public press only, so people can only talk in public. If you were able to talk individually to people, this would be even more insane. But
Way too much. Yeah. No, we can't. We couldn't.
yeah, there were some specific press rules about this game that do end up being quite important, actually. There are 5 press channels dedicated to allowing you to talk to anyone on the board. In fact, there might actually only be 3, but it was something like that. Anyone could post there. That was a free-for-all zone. And then there were 5 press channels for each individual region of the world. There was one for North America, there was one for Europe, there was one for Asia, there was one for Africa, and there was one for the South, which I think was South America and Oceania, if I recall correctly. It was something like that. And so in these separate bits, basically there was a rule that if there was a discussion happening about this area, you had to keep it in that area's chat. And obviously there's a bit of nuance there because some people are on the borders of areas, and of course you could have a South American discussion about Africa, which would then probably happen in the southern chat. But the main thing is that there were specific African chats that people would check in on from time to time and see our memes, but not necessarily understand what they were because they hadn't seen all the context for it beforehand, right? And there were 2 major memes that happened in Africa in the early game. The first of them was started by Burundi, and he called people together to form Drunk, which was an acronym for something I do not remember, but it was more or less the meme relocation project. Basically, Kanem-Bornu is meme, Amazon is Ezio, they are way too far away from each other. I want to get a bunch of people together to convoy meme into South America. And I was like, oh my god, please stop. I don't want anything to do with this. For one, it really upset the guinea pigs initially when people started considering it seriously, because they would be in the way of this, right? And they did not want me and my alliance pointed this way. And I was just spending a while trying to explain, look, I want absolutely nothing to do with this. I do not support it, whatever. But this idea evolved into Western Drift. At least I think it evolved into Western Drift. Western Drift might have come from some other things as well, which was the general idea that the people on this coast of Africa would drift into South America and take over the whole thing, right? Which actually does become a serious prospect. So it arises out of a meme, and it was actually something to reasonably be worried about, even though at this point in the game, I just think of that as like that's patently ridiculous. If anyone tries to do that, they are going to be killed by people who are further inland than them, right? But yeah, that's one of the two memes. The other meme that arose was proposed by, I believe, Barot's, which was the idea of the Pan African League, which was an alliance that includes the entirety of Africa except for me. And you may have seen a copy pasta below all of our videos for the last 6 months from one user in particular, who I believe is Barot's, Evim Zhao, which is PAL is an alliance where no members stab each other. Any stabs that do occur were arranged by the alliance. There are no conflicts in PAL, and Africa is a united front ready to weed out any foreign invaders. And of course, this is a total meme. Africa is a huge disjointed mess of alliances. But people outside of Africa start taking this seriously because people inside just repeat it as a copy pasta all the time. And I was like looking at this and, well, I wasn't actually too worried about that one because people attacking Africa is totally fine by me. I'm not going to be gone to any time soon. But it was like people outside of Africa made this big deal about all of these African alliances being allied against all of the foreigners. And it really wasn't, but it was this meme that just kept going on and on and on and around everyone, right? So I think those were probably the two things that caused you to be worried about Africa at the start of the game.
For me, the big one was the Western Star.
Mm.
PAL didn't really worry me. The U migrating over to me didn't seem plausible, but this Western alliance that has 6 people who all have fleets, who are all clearly coordinating, like they all build fleets, and they had was Ben G part of that alliance? I feel like he was, right?
Benji was part of the guinea pigs. He was Sao Tome.
Oh, he was guinea pig. Okay, well,
yeah.
I mean, he's also got a bunch of fleets. My point is, they had a bunch of fleets, and I was worried about all of them working together because they had the fleets of Africa seem to be unified, and like if they're all working together and they all build fleets, I anticipate there's going to be a lot of crap going on in the South Atlantic, and that scared me. So I didn't like that at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In fact, like there is more negotiation that happens pre-winter, but I think we can do it on the map with the builds because it doesn't actually concern the builds very much. So as you can see, Ezio is completely right to be afraid of all of these fleets because they do all actually build fleets. I was stunned looking at this. Like, what? How? How did they convince these people to in their alliance to build fleets? Tasnica is just kind of a god at negotiating, I think. But yeah, people were really sold on this Western Drift idea of going into South America. And you can see that even further down the coast, the Congo members also build fleets. And you have, obviously, South
If you want to talk about gods amongst men who are really good at getting their alliance to build a bunch of fleets, just take a look over at my end real quick.
Yeah, well...
I do a pretty good job at getting the people in my alliance to build fleets.
Yeah, certainly the north side of the Hive seems to have fleets. I was looking down here and not seeing...
Yeah, the Northern Hive is what I care about. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the South Hive, like I said, I delegated that. That became Downpour's problem, not mine. That was the whole point of this. The people that were near me put down a bunch of fleets. I was safe from the east. What a great start. But sorry, keep going talking about your stuff. I just needed to toot my own horn for a little bit.
No, that is perfectly fair. So you managed to get fleets down. These players also put fleets down. Suddenly there is a big conflict being staged over the South Atlantic Ocean. We will see how that goes. I did want to call attention to this legend of a player in St. Helena deciding to put down an army in a province where they will never be able to move that army. They did it as a meme to say they were building exiled Napoleon and he wanted a lift back to Paris. And people around him encouraged this, or people around them encouraged this at first, and were like, hell yeah, that's a great meme. And then as soon as the army was built, they were like, okay, I'm going to kill you. You are never getting your convoy off. So this poor player just gets stuck here and then promptly dies a bit later. But I wanted to call them out as being
because memes are less powerful than dots, unfortunately.
That is true. Well, it's not always true, but it is true in this case. Anyway, you may notice that all of these players build armies. There was some negotiation around that, trying to get guinea pigs to build fleets as well. Obviously, I would have been more happy with them building fleets, because then they can't come inland and attack us. But they were very nervous about the idea of us being here and all having armies, and that is completely fair, I think. So they decide not to in the end. And that is kind of also as a result of all the negotiation that happens in this first round, in the winter phase. Like, it's tough to get across how much negotiation happens in that tiny point at the start of the game, right? Because it's a tiny space of time, but there's so much chat that happens, and the stuff that happens at the very start is the most important stuff in the game. So this is all negotiation that still happens before the phase. But basically, between Western Star, Guinea Pigs, TCL, and Locke, there's a lot of, how would I put it, like, tension, but not tension at the same time. People are trying to figure out where they will go, but they are too afraid to say or propose anything solid about where they will go, right? And obviously these players on the coast have a direction that they will be going. They want to go to South America, and they haven't really been talking to the South American players, so that's perfectly fine. You can just go tally-ho off to war we go. But the rest of us are all kind of trying to figure out who will be the odd one out among these alliances, without making ourselves the odd one out by being the person to pitch that someone else becomes the odd one out. And so what emerges is this whole dance of people stepping on eggshells, like, all the time. People are going, okay, I think I like you, and then the other person is going, yeah, I like you too, but no one is saying, let's go against this other person. And I am super worried by all of this, because something I've realized about Locke quite fast is that Tim in Agadez is a really good talker and is talking all the time everywhere. I am talking quite a lot in this early game, and no one else is, which is not good. The guinea pigs are all talking tons. TCL is all talking tons. And Western Star, Tasnica and Ouagadougou, I think, are like talking so much that they kind of make up for everyone else in their alliance not talking as much. But I am seriously worried about that, because I think it might make us the odd person out. Thankfully, Mandara and Banda bonded really well together at the start of the game. So Mandara is sort of a meat shield for us against TCL, stopping TCL from coming north. And the guinea pigs, like, Hauser is talking to them just enough to sort of get in their good books, but not really enough to make a solid alliance with them. So this is the area I'm most worried about. While I'm asleep, this is still before the builds come in, Western Star starts treading much more closely towards proposing an attack directly on us. And this is especially Tasnica and Ouagadougou. And GP is sort of also treading in that direction. It's not an outright proposal of an alliance against us, but they're making enough noise about it that Tim sounds the alarm bells and basically ats everyone in Locke saying, hey, this is what's being said by Western Star, we need to deal with this. I jump in and I say, hey, look, if they're doing this, then I guess that gives us a direction to go, right? We should go in that direction, we should pitch that we ally the guinea pigs, and then we go and kill these people. And immediately these two players start backtracking and go, I wasn't actually pitching an alliance against you, like, this is all a big misunderstanding. And GP were going, yeah, we could maybe go in that direction with you. And of course, as soon as these guys go, I wasn't doing that, I then sort of walk back my rhetoric too, because I don't want to make myself the odd person out by being too aggressive, right? Locke is already in a bit of an unstable position. So there ends up being, again, all of this kind of dance, but the general stance of things is that Western Star and Locke are not on great terms. They both kind of pitched this attack against each other and then walked back from it, and GP is in the position to choose which of them they side with. And that's gonna be the state of things going into the spring here. Um, yeah, that's kind of what I've got to say about the alliance position going into the spring. I guess we can move back to South America if you want to and start talking about your lead up to the moves. I'll get the clean map up. Oh, unless you want to talk about the builds more, but
Oh, sorry, I muted myself. But yes,
that's
I
totally
absolutely need to talk about builds because, as you see, there are a lot of people who built armies on the coast, and thank God for these players, because if there weren't Hive members building armies, there wouldn't be much room for any of us to grow. Um, I forget which ones exactly were the ones, because there were one or two of them were actually allowed or agreed upon. Like, but I forget which players were exactly, because again, I didn't pay that much attention to the Southern Hive. I stopped looking at it. And the people, the spectacle ones, Palmorbo wasn't part of the Hive, so we had no authority over him. Um, and like, look, if there's one person who's just not making moves that you like, but most of your other neighbors and people in your vicinity are, that's just a good place to be. Um, and there's enough chaos going on with the pirates. Cartagena and Bogota and Quito have a bunch of crap. I forget exactly what's going on with them because they were separate from the Spectacle Bears. Some of them were separate from the pirates, and somehow like Belize and Panama and Bogota managed to, like, I forget exactly which ones, but some of them pissed everyone off and just became huge targets immediately, kind of for free. And I don't really remember exactly what happened. It was probably just, hey, they needed people to go eat, and someone pissed someone off, and so that's where it went. Um, but one of the things, if you look at where the map is for me as Amazon, where do I get my second thought? Because he did such a good job convincing my nearby neighbors to put down fleets, none of them stabbed. Um, and so how am I supposed to grow? What's the world look like? Well, I have no idea how we got this to happen, but essentially, I found a way to get Nakugo their second thought by going and eating one of the people to the east or the south, like the southeast, who broke the rules. Maybe it was Minos. I forget exactly, but they were going to get a thought. Nakugo was going to get a thought from someone, and Nakugo just agreed to let me take their dot.
that is incredible.
Um,
What?
which is, yeah, that's what happened.
So you just say things like this, and I'm like, how the hell did you pull that off? That is, in a chaos game, getting someone to give you the second dot is like the hardest thing. That it sets you up for a good game, right? If you get that second dot, I cannot figure out how the hell you negotiate for that, and I've never been able to figure it out. And you somehow manage it every single game.
Well, this one, it's because I was the queen, and the queen bee needs to be the biggest, right? That's
Okay.
just how things go. Um, so yeah, it's only fair. But so because of that, I know that I'm gonna be moving to Goiás, and that's almost a guaranteed move because there's only like, I know where Nokugo is going, and there's a bunch of fleets, and then Madeira is going to the west, and so that's where like the fact that that gets locked in relatively early is just wonderful for me because it means that I don't need to worry that much about, like, normally the entire first year is about how am I going to get my dot, how am I going to get that growth, and am I going to have to stab, how can I make the stab like believable and not destructive, like how can I make things work in such a way that I still get to grow but I'm not going to get annihilated. But because this got sorted out pretty quickly, I remember spending the rest of my phase actually trying to help the alliance, and trying to think about like how am I actually going to navigate the Hornet's Nest became the real obstacle to us, because they built a ton of armies and were just very much, oh, we're going to fight the Hive, and then the Hive has more people, so the Hive will win if the Hive can stick together. And so that's annoying. But then how can I help my, like, all of these people who built fleets on the coast? How can I keep them safe? How can I give them growth? What are we going to do about the Caribbean? How do we like navigate this alliance? And so I spent a ton of this phase talking to the Caribbean, trying to be like, hey, can we I forget if it was, are we going to kill Pamorbo together by like supporting them into Pamorbo, or we go into Karib, or was it, can they keep Pamorbo away from us? How do we handle, like, I spent a bunch of time talking with the Caribbean to keep them, hey, let's work together. You guys sort yourself out. And then maybe together, let's go and stop West Point or whatever. Was it Western Point? West Point? Western Star? Whatever.
Yeah.
One of those alliances. Yeah, Western Star. We can go deal with that alliance. We can do some other stuff, but I don't know. I spent a bunch of time focusing actually externally now on this eastern part to see, hey, how can we make things go smoothly? Because that's just, look, if my alliance is gonna give me a dot and put me up, then I want to support them and I want to make it happen. And so that became the focus of my effort. And I was like the point man, and I was ostensibly had authority over a lot of these fleets, and they would do what I want. There was a Kalina sub. I remember that. Kalina swapped out for someone else. Someone subbed in, and I appreciated them subbing in, and then hopping right into our alliance and being just a great member. So, shout out. That was the spring, which was pretty straightforward. Was it spring? I think it was spring.
Yeah, well, that was
pretty sure it was spring. Whatever, sounds like spring. Yeah. Oh wait.
Is there anything else that happens in spring?
Oh, I mean, there was definitely other stuff that happened in spring. I don't know.
I'll get the clean
I don't want to talk about much more, but
Mhm.
I'm no longer 100% that I got Nokugo to agree to give me the dot in the spring. I think they were tentative about it in the spring, but wanted confirmation later.
Mhm.
Whatever. I was planning on it happening. Whatever. I don't care. The details are irrelevant. The viewers are never going to care. They'll never know unless they like read the press or whatever. Meme, what happened to your game? This is much more relevant. This is what the viewers are here for.
I think they're here for you as well, leading your Mega Alliance to victory, right?
I sure hope not.
So I am still in lock. I'm trying to figure out what the hell is going on with our alliance situation. We are still all treading on eggshells here, and I'm identifying like a few main agitators, people who are trying to get people to go against us without saying that people should go against us. Right? People like Banda. Banda is repeatedly through this section going, like, I like Mandara, but Lock in general is in the middle of the map, and maybe that's the best place that people can go. They don't outright say this at any point. They're much more diplomatic about it than I'm making out, and they're much more subtle about it, but they are trying to, like, prod and poke and see if people are willing to go against us so that they can basically pull Mandara out of our alliance and then slam into us with Mandara. And I do pick up that that's going on, but again, I'm just kind of deflecting it by not calling it out, by just trying to make friends with people around us, right? And trying to keep Lock strong in the middle. And that seems to be working at first. People are just generally being... They aren't outright calling for Lock's death. Another player I'm a bit worried about is Benin. They do continuously try and prod and poke and find people to attack, but they aren't exclusively doing that to Lock. They are also looking at potential options in Western Star. I think at some point they were looking at options in TCL. I'm a bit less worried about them, and I think Wagadugu was another person I identified as being that. And another person I identified as being that kind of player who was poking and prodding at things and trying to make something happen is unfortunately Hawara, who is in my own alliance. And I'm like, okay, there is a time where having an agitator in your alliance is good, but I think they need to be quite subtle about it so that they don't bring everyone's wrath upon you. And Hawara was the opposite of subtle. They were trying to make something happen and trying very blatantly to make something happen. And quite often in this phase, Hawara would be saying something and I would have to jump into that channel and, like, make it clear this is not Locke's position. This is not what we're doing. Right. The main one that I remember is that in the north, in the Arabian Peninsula, Mecca initially tries to form some kind of alliance, And it goes very wrong for them, and everyone around them ends up ganging up on them and going, let's take out Mecca. And Mecca makes this massive call for help among everyone else around them. And when someone does something like that, your immediate response as a nice person is, I'm going to come to their aid, right? But your immediate response as a diplomacy player should be, I'm not touching that. That alliance can do whatever they want, because that is one person. They will not be able to help me when that alliance comes and takes revenge on us for trying to interfere. And Hawara sees Mecca's call and goes, I'm going to attack Cairo. I'm going to go in and save Mecca. And they basically declare war on Cairo from Locke's perspective before Tim alerts me to the fact that they've done this, because I don't think this is even in an Africa chat. I think this was maybe in the Asia chat. I was like, oh my god, Hawara, what the hell are you doing? I just run in along with Tim and go, no, we are not doing this, Hawara, stop this right now. This is a terrible idea. And like, it might not be the worst idea ever for them to go against Cairo, because Cairo has the fleet. But the main thing is, people in Africa are looking for opportunities right now. If we go north, we are going to be that opportunity. We cannot do something like that. And so Hawara walks it back and goes sorry and whatnot. And like, Arabia demands we kick Hawara out of the alliance, which we don't do. We keep them in. And I'm just very nervous about what Hawara might end up doing on this phase, but we managed to keep all the fires under control somehow through all of that.
I learned that it can be really nice to have other people that are bigger agents of chaos than you, because then they can be the ones that attract the attention. You can be the good cop and they can be the lunatic cop.
100%. That is absolutely true, but I think that is in a situation where you're in more of a power position than we as Locke are. I think some people saw Locke as being this in a great position because we're in Central Africa and we have this big impassable zone above us, so people can't come south, right? And these players have built fleets anyway. But I think Locke is one of the worst positions of an African alliance right now. Like, we are the easiest team to coalition, just in general.
Plus, you've only got like 5 thoughts, right? Like, you're not big.
We have 7. Because we have Azande and Mandara and whatnot. Although, if TCL attacks us, Mandara will join TCL, so... but, yeah. We are... Like, we're very big across the map. We look quite big, but we're actually not that strong. And we're quite spread out, and we're very easy to coordinate against. So I'm just trying to put out all the fires and wait for something else to happen so that we can take advantage of that, right? So that we're not the odd person out. The other super important thing that happens this phase is the Oyo incident, which is basically when we get down to strategy here. We were arranging tons of bounces with everyone around us, right? GP wants a bounce in Nuri. It's like, okay, fine, Mandara, you can go bounce in Nuri. Western Star want a supported bounce in Busa. I'm like, okay, sure, we'll do that. Anything that means that people hold off until something happens elsewhere that makes us not the target. Evergreen asks for bounces in Sanaa and Dinka. That gets arranged, and then the whole Cairo thing happens, and Hawara calls off the bounce in Sanaa, but the one in Dinka is still on, so that is... actually, there can't be bounces in both of those. Oh, there can. It was Axum who was supposed to bounce Sanaa, and Gondard in Dinka. So there's supposed to be a bounce in Dinka as well. Basically, we're doing all these things, right? And very quickly, all of our units are accounted for. We have bounces everywhere with everyone. We can't really do much else. And then Benin comes along and says, oh yeah, I think I need to go to Oyo for security reasons. It's like, no, you do not. You stay out of that province. Like, what the hell would they be doing in Oyo? They are absolutely just going to carry on towards Hausa states from there. That is... I am not okay with that. So I was just going, no, that is not okay. We cannot have you in Oyo. But I was trying to do it as diplomatically as possible, because obviously, if we annoy them too much, they could outright call for our heads, and then we are probably screwed. So We end up having this back and forth where Benin is just not willing to not go to Oyo at all, and there's nothing we can do about it, because if we go for a bounce in Oyo, then we're letting Western Star into Busa, and like this, we have a bounce in Nari arranged as well, so I don't know. It was just a problem strategically for us that we couldn't really stop it without losing ground somewhere else. And
Yeah.
yeah. And in the end, actually, Tasnica comes in and sort of saves this, but not exactly. It was clear Benin is not willing to not go to Oyo. They stick with it 100%. Tasnica comes in after like 2 hours of this conversation between me and Benin and goes, "Hey guys, how about if we just say if Benin ever attacks House Estates or even proposes an attack on House Estates, Western Star and Locke immediately unite and kill guinea pigs." I'm like, yeah, that works for me. And amazingly, like Benin goes, yeah, that works for me as well. And so suddenly we have this pact that, yeah, you can have Oyo, but if you ever say anything about using it against us, then you will die. And that is, it's not ideal. I would prefer them not to be in Oyo, but I clearly couldn't make that happen, so this is the next best thing. And this agreement sort of morphs into a three-way thing, where we both go, if any of us ever pitch an attack against any of the others, that alliance will get ganged up on by the other two. Which, I mean, that's basically as good as we're going to get at this point.
Yeah, tripods are pretty stable.
Yep. And that is basically everything that happened in Africa. Well, it's not everything that happened, but it is everything relevant that I'm going to talk about that happened. Oh no, there's one other thing. Mandara is supposed to bounce in Nari on this turn, as what we agreed. Mandara then comes to us and goes, "But I'm supposed to be support holding Banda this turn. I'm friends with Banda. We both agreed to support hold each other." I'm like, oh my god. Mandara, you do not need to support hold someone you're friends with on the first turn of the game. They are not being attacked by anyone. Like, this is our alliance, this is their alliance. You don't need to do a... Like, the bounce is more important. And I try and talk through that diplomatically, and Mandara is clearly not happy about it, but they do agree to bounce in Nari at this point. So that is something that ends up happening. Anyway, that is everything I needed to talk about with regard to moves. Ezio, is there anything more you want to talk about with moves, or shall we go ahead to show them?
It's been an hour and a half. Let's show some moves.
First moves of the game, let's go! Do you want to look at your area or mine first?
Let's do mine. Sure. Let's give me a refresher. God, what happens?
You do get into Goyas.
I do get into Goyas.
Mm-hmm.
And the Kugo successfully moves out, gets set up for their thought. Minas Gerias? AFKs? I forget what was going on with that one. But I think Sao Paulo is someone who was going to get knocked out. Just based on the lack of moves. Maybe it was Rio. I don't remember, man. Point is, Nakugo has a dot that's going to happen somewhere over there. I'm in Goyas. This is a good time to tell people how I do my moves in Chaos games. I put in tentative orders after phases go by, especially in these Chaos games, because I don't want to forget. I don't want NMR. I want to have something in that's a solid move. And right now, my default for solid move is move to Madeira. Because I've heard from... I know that Madeira's looking at the Hornet's Nest, and so he's not going to be covering Madeira. And you got to double year one. If you don't, it's really bad. So I figure I'm going to make that move. That's like a good default. If Takugo gets back to me and confirms that I'm set to take their center, that's great. We'll stick to that. But for now, I'll just put in the tentative order into Madeira. Nakugo gets back to me pretty early on, and it's just like, yeah, great. You can take Nakugo. And so great. That's all locked in. Everything's fine. And so great. Wonderful. No worries. We can go. And the rest of the hive, like, things are going pretty solidly. Like if you look at the southern parts, if you just keep scrolling down, basically the hive was bigger than everyone else, and we did a lot of coordination and have more people than most of our neighbors, and so we just make solid progress kind of everywhere. It's just a really good pitch actually in favor of being part of the biggest alliance in your area because things work out for you. So we just have a dominant first phase. The spring is crushing. We can, if there's a way to flip back to the hive to show like who's in the hive and whose
Oh,
moves are being
yes.
successful and who's not in the hives and see their moves not being successful, right? That'd be great.
So
This map, I think.
this
Oh,
is the
great.
spring map, or the first spring map. I think there's several spring maps. Yes, this is the hive. That is a large hive. I see Hornet's Nest has grown as well, though, to include quite a few more
Yep.
people. But yeah,
Yeah, but still not enough. Oh, was it the case that Nakugo was someone that I did like a sneaky thing of maybe like not letting them be part of the hive initially? It might be that. I think
that
Nakugo
actually does look
was
like the
late.
case. Yeah, this is
Yeah,
the
I
spring
think Nakugo
retreats map,
might
and
have.
they've now been accepted, right?
Yeah, I think Nakugo was like a late person to join the hive, and I was really good about not letting them be part of the hive. And then their conditions for joining the hive and getting a dot elsewhere would be that I would get to take their dot. That sounds like how I pitched it. That makes sense to me.
That
Wow,
works. Yeah.
that's great. Yeah. Cool. So that explains it that way, and that's very straightforward. And then if you look at the top, you'll see the of South America. Still, sorry, the alliance structure, real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll see that the spectacle bears are gone. They've now joined the northern part of the hive. There's that gray part that isn't part of an alliance. That's where I was talking about with like the Bogota and them just being just. I don't know exactly what's going on with them because they pissed everyone off somehow so effectively, and so they're just gonna get eaten, which is great. And then the pirates are still doing great. So I don't know. I'm just exceptionally happy with how things are going. Yeah, the only thing that's annoying is this one dot. If you go back to the actual map, there's a unit that I want to point out that's a relevant unit.
Okay.
And you maybe can see the moves because you should see that it's the army in Japura because this army moved and successfully bounced in Shipbo, or whatever that one is. But it's something about This was agreed. This is what we wanted. The problem is this place is only two places that it can grow if Japura wants to double this year, and that's me or Madeira. That said, Japura was the first person to join the bee. They've been the hive. They've been super pro hive this entire game, like very active in the press, just like extremely like go bees, go hive, let's do this. And I've been talking with them extensively, and so I'm just like, all right, this should be fine. If they probably can't double this phase, but due to all of the chaos around in Bogota, the fact that Quito is part of us means that they can probably get into Shipura or Quitoto this phase and then actually grow this year or next year, and in the second year of the game, not the first year of the game. And we'll be happy to help out. So probably be fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like worst
And
case,
yeah, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to Nakugo.
yeah, if you're getting second build, then worst case, they don't actually kill you. They just take a dot, right? And then you can lead some kind of massive charge against them of all of the bees for attacking.
Yes, because I would be the exiled queen, exactly, who's been stabbed.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of supporters that will all work together. Notably, it's a little harder than I would love it to be because of all of those fleets that I got built previously. There will be no one to flank from that area, but maybe the army in Pomorbo, maybe we can figure something out. And even if we can't do it immediately, like there's enough armies in the area, I anticipate it being successful if things go terribly wrong. But it should be fine. Nakugo is happy to let me take their dot. So that's just locked in. I'm not stabbing anyone. I'm just doubling. Great. How straightforward. How easy. Yeah.
Okay.
That's my face. Very straightforward. Nice and easy spring.
I'll go over and look at the moves on my side because they are almost all completely fine. I don't like the move to Oyo, but as mentioned, that was agreed. We end up with the bounces, like there are bounces everywhere in Africa. I issue a core order, which the mods were annoyed about because they thought the bot had been disabled for coring, because this is a build anywhere variant. but I somehow managed to enter it anyway. They do disable it immediately after this, so I sadly can't finish my core on the next turn, but it is what it is. This bounce was arranged that everything is like as requested over here, even Mandara's bounce that they weren't very happy about, except you will notice this Hawara unit moving into Sanar and not getting bounced by anything. You will remember that Hawara made this big deal over needing to go for Cairo, and so cancelled the bounce in Sanar because they were going for Cairo, and then got talked back from that. And then decided to re-enter the bounce in Sanar without consulting the person that they were bouncing with. And there was a big debate after this had happened as to whether this was on purpose or not. And in the post-game, Hawara did admit that yes, this was completely on purpose, which was what I suspected because of the player Hawara had been up to this point. They did go into Sanar with the full intention of getting into Sanar and making something happen, right? But obviously Evergreen are not happy about this move at all, and immediately start negotiating to try and get Hawara to back off. And actually Hawara initially is pretty open to their suggestions of backing off, because Hawara realizes they are now the bad guy in the situation, and their Evergreen might go in on them, and then they are in a tough spot. So they initially basically agree, yeah, I'll go back to Hawara. However...
Yeah, and what's worse is for them is that if Darfur snipes them and dots them, Darfur can save the Evergreen Alliance, make them happy with him or with them, and have good allies while stumbling, which is still a very good place to be. So, yeah.
Yeah, that is 100% correct. But Hawara is really, really pissed off the Evergreen Alliance, but is willing to walk it back. Everything else here has gone according to plan. There is a lot of stuff that happens in the next phase. I'm not sure how much of it I should talk about here, because I really need the clean map. So, shall I just advance the clean map? Or yeah, okay.
Yeah, if you're not going to talk about the moves, you can go to the clean map, see what happens.
Okay, right. So, I think there's a retreat phase, which is unusual in the first phase of diplomacy games, but in this one it makes sense. So
yeah, chaos games.
Yeah. Now we have this position where we have moved into Sanar. Hawara is getting ready to walk back into Hawara away from Evergreen, but we have annoyed Evergreen a bit, and everyone else has done exactly what we agreed to, except of course Benin being in Noyo. And I immediately notice in this phase that Benin is starting to poke and prod again at ways that they can maybe get people to attack other people. They are not saying anything directly, but they are certainly like pushing very subtle hints into their messages that maybe Ouagadougou should go to Adja and stuff like that, right? And I am obviously not happy about this. I don't want this to turn into a full thing, so I immediately try and basically divert the rest of make sure that the rest of their alliances aren't okay with them doing that, by making sure that Locke is seen as an asset to those alliances. So I see Hawara's gone into Sanar like this. I'm like, okay, Western Star, GP, TCL, we all have great relations, right? TCL, you're really buddy-buddy with Mandara, that's fantastic. We made this awesome deal with Benin, and with you guys about none of us attacking each other, that's fantastic too. Everyone's on board with this awesome thing. Let's all team up together. Like, how does that sound to you? That was my initial thing. Everyone was like, yeah, we're friends with you, whatever. That's basically what they'd been saying for the entire time. I was like, okay, if we're all friends, then I understand that what Hawara did was either a mistake or a stab on Evergreen. I think we take advantage of it and just go that direction, because we have to choose a direction eventually, and we now have the jump on this side. It will give you guys the space you need to go the other direction, and it will mean that we can solidify this alliance by having everyone actually, like, have a reason to work together, as opposed to just standing around waiting to see what happens. And of course, all of the alliances adjacent to us are really happy to hear this, either because they agree with the message, which I think is less the reason, but more because it's us going the other way, it's us going away from them. So either they end up with an ally that goes that direction and moves units away, or they end up with a really easy target. So they're all in favor, which means I can immediately firm up this sort of four-way alliance between ourselves, TCL, GP, and Western Star. And as a result of this whole conversation between GP and Western Star and stuff about attacking us disintegrates. I am like, oh my god, thank god. Because I'm so panicked about that being a thing right now. I think it will come back very soon, because obviously as soon as we move out in this direction, they'll have more opportunities. But at least for now, we're not under threat of this happening. So we have now committed to...
Yeah, I mean, like, what else were these armies going to do?
Yeah. It's like, that is the question, right? I am very much relying on that agreement that we made with Tasnica. If anyone pitches the attack against us, then we go in against them. And we're obviously not going to move away the actual armies that are on that front. But, like, it feels like we've made some progress, at least, rather than just standing around waiting for people to declare war on us. Obviously, Evergreen are not very happy about this development, mainly because I basically declare war on them. I should talk about the format of our alliance in Locked, by the way. It's technically an elected leadership. We said we'll elect the leader once every year. The group immediately elected me leader, and that was mostly because Hawara formed this alliance and formed it around the YouTuber, right? They were like, hey, Meme's the cool guy here, we should all follow Meme. That was the whole reason I made this alliance. I was like, I don't want to be the leader. I hate being the leader of an alliance. Like, I just want to fade into the background. But fine, I'll step up, I'll take the reins, because other people aren't doing so. But I want to make sure this is a repeatedly elected position, and I'm not standing for election next year. One of you guys is going to have to do this. But, so I end up being the elected leader here, which means I get to make the call on attacking Evergreen, and I basically go ahead and say, yes, we're attacking Evergreen. And Hawara is very nervous about it, that, like, I was thinking I would move back to Hawara. The Azande doesn't love the idea either, but, like, I think I generally gave enough of a good reason for it, and I did try and pull on people's heartstrings a bit with the reason I gave, which was a little bit, like, of me, but I was going in the first Chaos game I played. I got my alliance killed by committing too hard in a direction. In the second one, I got my alliance killed by not committing at all. So this time I'm trying to walk the middle line and commit after we have a reason to, right? Which is Hawara's move. And people seem to generally accept that. Evergreen tried very, very hard to pull the card of, you're doing an unjustified attack on us, we need to form a coalition against you. But somehow the agreements that I made with these other people stuck. And I'm so, so glad they did. Right. That is basically everything from my end, at least for now. Do we want to go back to South America? Or did you want to talk about that anymore?
I think it's fine. I think we can go and just look at the fall moves.
Okay, in that case, I do actually need to talk a little bit more about the moves, because stuff does
talk
happen.
More about the moves.
Sorry, this is feeling like a very Africa-centric commentary, but hey, it's because you have managed
I have a feeling that's going to be the case.
It might be. Alright, so, going into the last, 2 hours of this phase, I was watching Rogue One with my housemates, right? Just, not in a cinema or anything, but in front of the TV, because the last time I watched Rogue One, the only other time I watched Rogue One, I wasn't able to pay much attention to it. So I really wanted to watch this movie, because it's supposedly one of the coolest Star Wars movies. I still don't know if it's one of the coolest Star Wars movies, because I wasn't really watching it, because I had to check the press on this stupid game for the entire time I was supposed to be doing that. Because right towards the end of the phase, suddenly these two start discussing attacking Locke again. And again, they don't do it, outright or overtly. they'd agreed to do a bounce in Aja between Ouagadougou and Oyo, and Benin goes, I don't remember what his exact wording was, but it was something like, whatever you choose to do this phase, I support you. And it was like very clear that the emphasis was on I support you. I was like, man, you are just telling them you are supporting them to Aja, right? So I jump into that conversation and I say, I'm seeing messages about support that I really don't like. And and Benin says this, like, sees me say this and panics that I've spotted what he's doing, because of course we still have this agreement with Western Star that if anyone proposes an attack on anyone else, then we gang up on them. And guinea pigs are quite vulnerable here if we do choose to gang up on them. So he's like, oh, what message? I think you might be misinterpreting something that I've said. I'm like, I'm going to keep an eye on you, but I really want to go watch Rogue One, so I'll take your word for it for now. And I was just going back into that conversation and throwing messages every time Benin spoke to make sure he knew I was keeping an eye on him, no matter what he said. And then he goes silent for like half an hour towards the last bit of the phase. I'm like, okay, finally, I can go and watch Rogue One. I can actually pay attention now. But of course, I'm checking my phone because maybe something happens at the last minute. With 2 minutes to go, he ats Ouagadougou and says, hey, are you around? I immediately jump into the conversation and go, no, but I am. And so he just goes, oh, whatever, and stop, and doesn't do anything, right? And then if we go to the moves on this phase, he just ends up doing the agreed bounce in Nuri, and House of States and Ouagadougou bounce there. But I was so sure that he wanted to support this Ouagadougou to Aja move. He was so clearly gunning for it. It was just
Seems
hilarious.
Because the position for you guys is pretty brutal. If there's a support on that move into Aja, then there's a bunch of units. Aja, Oyo, and Nuri are all occupied, and things get pretty awkward for your alliance. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about the other moves in this alliance in a second. I think we should go over to South America as long as you're okay too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's go look at South America a second.
All right. Well, look.
Oh boy.
Sometimes people forget to update their orders in a phase. So I screw up real bad, and I'm supposed to go to Nakugo. Mm-hmm. It's guaranteed everyone's okay with me getting the dot. I'm gonna have it. Scarios is even supporting it in, but I just keep my order in to take Madeira that I put in at the very start. So yeah.
Yep.
That's catastrophic. Furthermore, Chapura, good ally, great buddy of mine, walks into my dot, and posts this long thing. Oh, Ezio is definitely going to stab the alliance immediately. This is preemptive. I need to stop him from getting strong. Clearly premeditated. Pretty sure it was going to happen no matter what. So that's all sad. And so this turn is just the worst phase possible, because it just looks like I stabbed my alliance, and I tell everyone it's a misorder, but I know no one's going to believe me, and it's fine. And then I get stabbed, and everything's real bad. For the Hive, if I don't misorder, the Hive still has a solid turn. Like, if I just walk into Nakugo, Madeira, the player from Madeira, walks into Exura and is able to build. So Madeira would still be occupied. I would be friends. A bunch of moves just went through. Like, this was a very solid turn. Again, big alliances do really well in the early game. Tons of effective moves, just lots of crushing. But for me, it's over. This phase, this was enough to just knock me out. I wasn't going to get back up after this.
This is just doubly brutal, right? Because if you had gone to Nakugo, you have a really good chance, I think, because for one, Madeira is building. They won't trust your power at all after what they just did, right? You can probably get their support to go back up north. You can rally people against your power and say, hey, let's go back in, right? If you had stabbed, but they hadn't gone to Amazon, if they'd gone to Huitoto or something, I think you could probably have swung that because there's not really that many people around. Bellum isn't building, for one. Nokugo and Chikitano, I guess, would be, so there are some issues there. But you
No,
might
but
be able
Nakugo
to
would be
get
the
away with
person that
it.
I wouldn't be taking, right? Like if
Yeah.
I don't get stabbed there, I could probably go to Nakugo and be like, "Yo, you were just such a great ally. You were willing to give me a dot. That's someone I want to work with. I don't want to work with these other folk fools. You, me, Chikitano, three of us are on two. Let's be real strong. Let's do something or whatever, right? I could have swung it in many ways, but the combination of both looking like I've stabbed my alliance and getting stabbed myself is just not. It's not gonna happen. And then the guy that stabbed me is on two dots adjacent to me, which also makes it much worse, right? Because Japura is going to be in Japura and Amazon, and if I was in Nakugo, I would at least have distance. No, it's
Yes.
just it's catastrophic. It's kind of worst possible position, and it's all because I put in a dumb order preemptively and then just forgot to update because
Yeah.
work is a bitch.
I think probably everyone in this game did not believe that this was a misorder back to Madeira, right? I
I
don't know
assume
whether people
nobody
believe.
believed it. But again, if you'd actually seen the press and you'd seen that the player in Nakugo was fine with me taking it, and that Minas Garius had said they were supporting me into Nakugo, like if you're in that position, why would you ever not just take Nakugo?
Hmm. Yeah. It's that is true. You would basically always go there. I think the only reason to ever go to Madeira is if like if Japur is moving somewhere else, it gives you a more consolidated position to kill them. But then even then, you'd have
Yeah,
Hive collapsing in on you, so it's rough.
yeah, and like if I can take Nakugo, stay solid with my ally, and it's not like Amazon and Nakugo are particularly disparate. They're two spaces away, and they can work. They can coordinate on Madeira. Like I could, if I'm trying to take Madeira and Japura, I can just take Nakugo this phase, and the next phase in the spring take Madeira, and then support myself with the Japura in the fall. Like
Mhm.
it could totally work. But whatever. Point is, I don't understand why nobody believed me. I if I'm not really looking at it, thinking about it, I wouldn't care. And I knew that my position was so bad. I wasn't pushing that hard.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yep. So not a good turn for you on this front. Is there anything else you need to talk about with regard
Uh,
to South America, or shall we move across to Africa again?
um, while I'm still alive, let's give some more color to what's going on. Like Downpour is consolidated. He was like, "Hey, look, the Southern Hive was perfect. Northern Hive sucked. I'll just be the leader of the entire Hive. Everyone should just listen to me, and I'll do everything. And like, we'll kill Ezio because he's a stabber, and we'll deal with Japura once we get there later. But for now, we'll just kill Ezio." Which again, fair. I get it, and like I wouldn't believe me either, but I know he actually did believe me. He was just like, "Yeah, it's easy for me just to get Ezio out of the way now, so."
Mhm.
Let's just do that. Um,
This is kind of what you were
yeah,
talking about
yeah.
with regard to Agadez earlier, right? Someone who has strong control in the alliance wanting to take someone else out who might control the alliance.
Yeah, who might have influence later. So
Mhm.
yeah. Ah well.
Yeah. Uh, is that everything you wanted to go over?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm about to get eliminated. Um,
Yeah.
it's this is not. I'm not gonna fight. This is not gonna be my game. I'm not gonna come back from this. So this one's gonna be as much as you want to talk about Captain Meme.
Yeah, so I mean, we were avoiding spoilers up to this point, I think, but at this point, like Ezio, when he is in a position like this, gets quite depressed. I think is the general way of things. Like some people go to bat trying to do everything they can to secure their position again. Some people just accept their fate. You're generally in the latter category, right? Is that
There are
fair?
different levels of positions that I'll fight for.
Mm,
But there is a level that is so far down that is just not worth it. Um,
mm,
I have many other games that I'm playing at this time. This is not the only game that I'm playing. As I said, I had a full-time job that I was putting off far too much to play this game, which also helps me not notice moves and stuff. And so for me to get eliminated from this one is not the end of the world. And because of this game, the scoring system being the way that it is, I am confident I'm not going to win. Like I think if I don't get to 2 dots in year 1 of this game, I am not going to be the winner, because you need to get big early and quickly and then stay relatively large, and that was not going to happen for me because of this. So even if I somehow survive, it would be like I stay on 1 dot for a while and like maybe get to 2 like 3 years from now after we're eliminating one of Jaipur's centers. But this is not a me winning the game position. So I'm off it. I'm over it. I'm out. '07. Enjoy, everybody.
Alright, well, let's move on over to Africa, because there's plenty of interesting stuff happening over there with me as well. I am also not getting a 2nd dot, but that is my own decision. I am holding. Actually, I did not have this hold in for the entire phase. I ordered to Darfur and I ordered to Mandara at various points during this phase, mainly because my alliance were clearly going to keep electing me leader, and I really didn't want to be leader. I was just like, what the hell, I'll just do it and see what happens, because I basically never get to 2 dots in this game. Like, I'll do something stupidly chaotic and see if I can get away with this, and hopefully it dissolves this thing of me being the leader of the alliance, right? But I end up deciding not to do that. I was like, oh, you know what, I need to stay sensible, I need to do it for the content. Getting eliminated in year 2 is not going to be good for the video, unlike a certain other person I can talk about.
Oh, no.
But yeah, it turns out that if I'd have stabbed by going to either Mandara or Darfur, I would not have been the only stabber, because Mandara made it very clear this phase they were going to Lagone. And then they did not go to Lagone, they went to Darfur, which kills Darfur, of course, and gives them an extra center. At one point in this phase, we had agreed to a bounce in Darfur, and then myself and Mandara had both agreed to not bounce in Darfur because Mandara wanted to go to Lagone. And after Mandara did this, they claimed that their move to Darfur was because they had left the order in from that bounce and, you know, had forgotten to change it to Lagone. I did not believe them. Other people wanted to give them a second chance on this and give them some leeway. I was like, there is no way they would ever do that. But I guess some people do make misorders like that sometimes.
Yeah, this one they're going to a dot and to stab people instead of moving to not a dot. I will say that's a pretty significant distinction.
Yes. And, like, my initial reaction to, well, my very first reaction as soon as I see the face turnover was, hey TCL, would you be okay to help us kill Mandara? And Mandara comes back up and says, hey, you know, it was a mistake, I want to stay and lock, it's gonna be fine. And I go, okay, you need to waive your build then. And they go, no, why would I waive my build? That would be, like, you'd be disadvantaging the lock alliance by making me waive my build, because then we'd have one less build for our alliance. And actually, somehow, I think it was Tim who said that made sense. It was certainly someone around there. Because they were saying, yeah, we do need all the armies. We're going down one army in our alliance if we do that. I'm like, well, if they have 2 armies here and they choose not to work with us, I am dead. So I am not going to accept that reasoning. They must waive that build if they're sticking with us. And they were not happy to do that, right? And I'm curious what your decision.
Because they just stabbed.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you can't. If someone stabs the alliance and then says, "Oh yeah, but I will be stronger. It's good for the alliance for me to build," just say like, "No, you stabbed. Doesn't matter if you wanted to or not." Like, no.
Yeah, and like the other things that were happening in the press on this turn, like Banda was instantly supporting Mandara and going, okay, I know it was a mistake, we should like let them off for this mistake. And of course Banda and Mandara had been rock solid allies through this, and I think Mandara especially had got rubbed the wrong way by the fact that we were telling them what orders to do with stuff like bouncing in Nuri in the earlier phase, right? which was again an indication that this was probably purposeful and maybe reasonable justification for it, given they were forced into our alliance in the first place. But obviously, reasonable justification doesn't matter for me because I just don't want to die. So Banda was supporting them in this, and I was looking at that and going, oh, they might get invited to TCL, and then we're in huge difficulties. And I could hear these, this player, Benin, licking his lips at the prospect of going in against us. Like, the moment he saw this, I was 100% sure he would come in this way. And I think we may all have been killed as a result of this had another stab not happened on exactly the same turn. Taznica walks into Oalata and kills them, and gets a second dot inside Western Star, and suddenly all of the Western Star members are looking inwards instead of outwards. So if these guys are coming in, it has to be by themselves. But that is still a really dangerous position. So within the first 10 minutes of this phase, after Mandara says that they will not waive their build, I go, okay, guys, Hawara is a loose cannon. We saw that earlier, right? Azande's moves are controlled by whoever wins a puzzle each phase. Darfur is dead. Mandara is stabbed. I propose that Bornu, Agadez, House Estates join the guinea pigs. And I added Agadez and House Estates and said, we need to do this. We need to join the guinea pigs. And I talked to the guinea pigs and said, hey, would you let us in? And the guinea pigs went off into their own channel to have their own discussion about it. Agadez and I had a really long discussion about whether this was a justified response, because Agadez thought we should give Mandara a second chance. I was like, there is no way in hell I'm giving Mandara a second chance here, because it will cost me money.
Agadez was saying that?
Yeah.
That's terrifying. You just know that means that Agadez wants to kill you.
Well, no, so this is where diplomacy comes in as well, right? Because Agadez has been very, very close to me for this entire game, and I think Agadez was also a very honest person in press a lot of the time. I think they genuinely did want to give Mandara the second chance. Because Mandara, I think it was also that they didn't want Locke to disintegrate. They were quite invested in Locke at this point. But we had this long conversation about it, and I was making my points. Like, my main point is, this makes us vulnerable. Even if we choose to allow Mandara back in, we have a very limited time span right now before our neighbors decide that we're the weak player and they'll go in on us. That's why I proposed this in the first 10 minutes of the phase. Like, before anyone could make any proposals of coming in and attacking us. We have to make this decision now, and that's not enough time to judge whether Mandara deserves a second chance or not, or anything like that. Like, Mandara could play up that they're going to give us a second chance, wait for someone to propose that attack on us, and then jump in on that attack, and then we've lost our chance, right? We will just die. So we have to do this right now. And eventually Agadez agreed to that. Yeah. I think, is that something similar to what you would have done in this situation? I hope so.
Oh, yeah, I mean, kicking out the stabber and making a different alliance that will actually deal with someone who just stabbed your alliance makes a lot of sense. Because they are your neighbor, they border you, they're the only center that the stabber's 2 units border. You need to get help immediately, and you cannot wait.
Yeah, 100%. And, like, guinea pigs have a discussion over this time, over whether to let us in. And they end up voting 3-1 in favor of letting us in, but with the one saying, okay, I'll go with the majority decision, given that you guys, I think it was Ardra who didn't want to let us in, I can't remember the reason, but they basically say, yes, we're going to allow you to. So we join guinea pigs right at the start of this phase. And Mandara, throughout this whole thing, is going, no, Locke can stay together. Like, this is, you're overreacting to this. And you're overreacting in a way that is going to kill me, right? They are really desperate about this, and I feel really bad for them because their pleas kind of start becoming actual pleas at some point. It's like, why are you not listening to me? Why is everyone being so brutal about this? Like, you are stonewalling me out completely, and I can't even play this game because no one is listening to me anymore. You're all doing your own thing over there, and I'm going to die. And I'm like, well, you just stabbed. That is going to be, like, I have to make the decision that's best for my game here, and the decision that's best for my game is going to be killing you. I'm really sorry about this. uh, and I
Yeah,
think,
you're far more tactful than I would have been.
yeah, I mean, I don't know if I was that tactful. I felt so bad about what was going on because Mandara clearly, like, they did the same thing I was thinking of doing for most of that starting phase. And they had even more of a reason because they'd been forced into an alliance they didn't really want to be in, right? And then, as an instant decision after that, they'd been cut out of any possible negotiations there and then left for dead, right? Basically, they were trying to talk to people and not able to talk to anyone. And it was clearly one of their first games as well. It was just like, And then the really brutal point came when they were trying to get backup from Banda again, and Banda had been backing them up to a point. But once we got into guinea pigs, I think Banda realized that backing them up would be a really bad decision on their part, because the rest of TCL were not particularly pro Mandara either. So at some point, Banda just sort of steps out of the conversation and stops defending them. And Mandara realizes that they are actually completely alone. And at that point, they quit the game. So I'm really sorry to the Mandara player that we kind of bullied you out of the game. But yeah, unfortunately, that's just how diplomacy goes at some point, right? It can be a really brutal game at times. So that is what ends up happening here. But yeah,
I mean,
sorry, go on.
So look, part of this is the nature of diplomacy. People will react strongly when you make moves that look hostile to them, even if it's not. This is part of why once I stabbed, and I didn't go up, I just knew the game was over, because people are going to look at me just as hostilely. And so they're going to stonewall me out. They have no real reason to listen to me. Furthermore, you have something that everyone else wants and probably needs, and that's dots. So trying to stop people from attacking you in diplomacy is always really hard. You have to give them more by keeping you alive than they would get from killing you. And how do you do that? That's often quite difficult. And so people can flip on you really fast. You can have great positions that get obliterated immediately. And sometimes through no fault of your own. You can have positions. You can go into a game and one of your neighbors just wants to attack you, and then you lose. And so it's unfortunately how it goes sometimes.
Yeah, 100%. And I imagine you would have been stonewalled in the same way Mandara was if you had tried to get people on side over here. Maybe with a
I sent out a couple of messages.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have more experience, so I could have done different stuff. But again, it probably wouldn't have mattered because it looks like I stabbed, and I'm very weak, so people have no reason to listen to me. It's all bad.
Yeah. All right. So yes, we end up going into the next phase here. Hawara jumps ship to EG to the Evergreen. Because at this point, obviously, they had jumped into Sonar in the first place, but then through that entire phase, they'd been going, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with the idea of the fact that we're attacking Evergreen here. And then right at the end of the phase, they'd said, hey, can you tap me so I don't need to support this move into Dinka? And Evergreen had gone, well, we can't do that anyway because we need to, that would be the same unit that would be protecting Dinka regardless. So they just end up holding. So they end up endearing themselves to Evergreen quite a lot on this turn, especially given that they'd made out that it had all been a mistake on their part in the first place, even though it wasn't. So they jump ship to join the Evergreen Alliance on this turn. So they end up managing to get into that alliance as well. So that really only leaves Mandara and Azande as people who are jettisoned from Lock and don't have anywhere to go. And unfortunately, that is just the case. No one is going to take Azande into their alliance because Azande's moves are controlled by a puzzle. That is what happens when you do a gimmick game sometimes. So if we move ahead,
yeah, I will say, you can start off the game with a gimmick, and it could be a really effective ploy to, hey, I'm just gonna do whatever I'm thinking of a number between 1 to 100, and then whoever first guesses it, I'll do their moves, and you do that for a couple phases, and then you stab. You could just get a really brutal position there. Um, so something to think about. Fake a gimmick.
Yeah,
Sorry, keep
it
going.
could be. It
No one
could be
wants
very
them in
funny.
their alliance.
But yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, there is a Diplostrats train horn in the background, but I guess you'll all have to deal with that for a little bit here. Alright, so if we go through to the alliance maps, you'll see it transforms at this point. Locke disappears, Hawara joins Evergreen here. We all become part of the guinea pigs, and there's this area of jettison players here. I don't know what's going on in the south of Africa at this point. Ravenala is something that happened. We'll figure that out later. What I completely forgot to mention on this previous turn, as I mentioned, like so much is happening here, is that we managed to get the pirate parlay to attack Evergreen with us. So we had this whole negotiation with TCL about, hey, we should both go this way together. I was being quite careful because I didn't know whether TCL would be willing to go against Pirate Parlay, and it turned out they weren't. So I was like, okay, I'll give two options here. Either we go against Pirate Parlay and Evergreen together, or we pull Pirate Parlay in and then we go against Evergreen together and you work with them in the south. And I tried to do that as like non-aggressively as possible, although Pirate Parlay were not happy with the fact that I included that other option. TCL declined the option of going against pirates, so I ended up having to talk a lot to pirates to try and get them on side against Evergreen. And there was a lot of negotiation behind this because Warsangali was very, very close to these players and others didn't really trust me very much. But we eventually managed to get them on side, and they move into Oromo and Sidamo, and then suddenly the alliance against Evergreen completely disintegrates because Locke disappears. So Pirate Parlay have made an aggressive move. The only other people who have made aggressive moves towards Evergreen, one of them has just joined Evergreen and the other one is dead. So now Pirate Parlay is sort of stood here going, oh my god, what just happened? And that is the position they end up in on the next phase. Yeah. Did you want to talk about builds in this area at all, or is that sort of non-essential for you?
I mean, it's at this point it became irrelevant. Like I don't remember well enough what happened. I know that I died this year. Is the important part. But I assume people are like, hey, we're deciding between it. We don't really believe that Ezio stabbed or whatever. It doesn't matter to us. Point is, there's going to be a bunch of armies building. It's all working for like downpours to head, telling people what to do. I don't know. I don't remember.
Okay, fair. We will briefly scroll back over to South America while you are still alive to check up on things over there. But of course, once Ezio dies, we kind of lose our correspondent in this area, so we don't know what's going on as much, right? So then the focus will be on me in Africa.
Yeah.
So stuff that happened pre-builds here, Mandara gets replaced by another player called Gabriel, and Gabriel is a master negotiator off the bat. I don't know if they played much diplomacy before, but they had that way of coming in full of enthusiasm and all of this that it immediately endeared them to everyone. And I looked at that and went, oh my god, no. I just want this to be someone that people can unite against, because if they... Like, I don't want someone with 2 dots right here. This is horrific for me. And immediately people started saying, hey, you should accept Mandara back into your alliance. They're doing, like, into the guinea pigs or whatever. They're very friendly now and everything. It's just like, no. I pushed as hard as possible against
All
that.
subs must die.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, 100%. And I had an unlikely ally in this. Maybe not so unlikely if you've been paying attention to what's happened, but it was Benin. The person who had been so aggressively trying to get people to go against us. Now that I was in his alliance, he was very much pushing for the same thing as me. We should get these dots for members in our alliance. We do not want an extra person in our alliance, because that means less dots for everyone else, right? It's just sensible. And so we managed to convince people not to keep Mandara alive. Basically, we are going to go and kill Mandara. We, the guinea pigs, are going to take these 2 dots. And that took a lot of negotiating. Especially Darfur, Evergreen were like, we should get Darfur. Like, you guys wronged us. Locke wronged us. Why would you get the dot here? But thankfully, Evergreen's closest member to it is Hawara, and Hawara has quite good relations with me. And Hawara is also a bit panicky about the fact that GP could end up on their border and wants to keep me happy with them. So they end up accepting the deal on behalf of Evergreen, basically on the condition that if I ever stab Hawara, guinea pigs kill me, which we were more than happy to say yes to. Like, that seems perfectly fair. And in the end, Mandara ends up actually, I think, waiving their build in order to try and get people to keep them alive. Like, try and go, I am 100% serious about wanting to work with you. I will be on your side forever. Just don't kill me. And again, a lot of other people were going, yeah, we shouldn't kill them, especially the Congo line. Given they weren't getting the dots anyway, they were basically saying, yeah, we should keep them in. But I was 100% on, we are not letting this player into our alliance. I will not accept it. And somehow
all subs must die.
Yeah. I turn into the bad guy. But like,
so quickly.
It's not even necessarily because it is absolutely because I saw the possibility of getting a dot, right? That is just undeniable. Like, I try and needs. Yeah, I try and make the excuse that it's because of my protection, and initially it was. If they had built an army here, it 100% would have been. But here, with them waving the army, we could have absolutely just taken Mandara off them and accepted them into the alliance. But that means I wouldn't have gotten an extra dot, so I'm not happy with that. And of course, Benin is very pro this as well, because the way we arrange it is basically the guinea pigs say, hey, old guinea pigs need to get one of these dots, new guinea pigs can have one of these dots as well. I go, yeah, that seems fine to me. And then Agades says, hey, Meme should get the dot because he's on the front line. I'm like, yeah, that works. I'm really happy with that. Did that really just happen? Did someone else say I should get a dot? I will say thumbs up. That works. And the idea eventually ends up being House Estates moves to Mandara. Benin gets House Estates as part of their thing, so they end up going to 2. And then I will get put into Darfur. That's the idea at this point, anyway.
I will say, something you're amazing at is getting other people to give you dots. And, like, to offer you the dots. I'm not good at getting them to offer it.
You say that, but someone did. Like, the whole Nakugo thing seems to be that someone...
Oh, yeah, but I, like, had to strong-arm them into making it happen, right? Like, again, I'm pretty sure it was that Nakugo was out of the alliance, they were late to the party or something, and then I had leverage, and then was able to be like, well, here's how we can make it happen. Whereas you were able to get someone else to say, hey, no, CaptainMeme, you should go have that dot.
Yeah, I mean, you say I was able to get someone. I really didn't. Like, I didn't push for it at all. This came completely out of the blue. I was obviously really happy to get the dot, but I was half expecting someone to say, hey, we need to take Bornu behind you. And I think Agades was just enough of a friend with me to not say that. that was the key thing there. But yeah, so at this point, I'm actually pretty happy with the situation because I'm not the leader of the alliance anymore. B, I'm now in an alliance with a lot of active people. Basically, everyone in GP was super active, which was why they were such a relevant power in the early game, despite being so small. Agades is incredibly active. I'm fairly active. House Estates is probably the least active, but is also quite endearing to everyone. So I think this is a really solid alliance that I'm now in, and I have the prospect of getting into the dot. Everything seems to be coming up meme, so I am just over the moon with this position. Yeah. Try and think if there's anything. Oh, there is something else I need to mention. Sorry. It is over here, Mali. You may notice Mali is not building. So Tasnica is an incredible diplomacy player, but has never played Chaos before, and I think that was part of why they went into Ualata here. They wanted to get to 2 dots. They saw that most of their allies have fleets, so can't punish it. But they also don't realize quite how powerful the strength of everyone around you saying, "Hey, you need to die now" is. Right? That is something that you learn in Chaos the first time you do something like this, and then you very rarely do it again. So everyone,
or it works out great, and then you do it again.
Yeah, it's possible. It's not likely, but it can be possible. So basically, Mali does this and then tries to go, "Oh, it wasn't against the Alliance or anything, blah, 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 blah," and the Alliance are immediately coordinating this massive attack against Mali to get their centers back, and Tasnica realizes, I'm probably gonna die. Pretty similar to how you were feeling. Except, Mali gets offered sort of a way out. So Niani, and it's in the form of a meme, Niani posts a video where they basically go, that they had said they had a dream or something like that, and then they wrote up the post from that dream and just put it in a video and read it out in a really pretentious way, sort of imitating Tasnica Mali's post style, saying, "Hey everyone, I've waived my build. This whole thing was a test of Western Star's integrity and how well you could deal with internal conflict and whatnot. I'm glad to say you've all passed this test. Now we can go back to being a team again," and everything. And it was just such a good video. It was absolutely something I could see Tasnica saying, and everyone just found it hilarious. And then as soon as the phase rolled over, Tasnica posts that exact message. And everyone is just rolling about laughing as Tasnica has waved this build, and they get enough goodwill as a result of this that Western Star just lets them back in again. Which is absolutely insane, incredible. And this game would have gone a very different direction if that Niani video hadn't happened, I think.
Unless your memes beat dreams.
Yeah, absolutely. Memes can be incredibly powerful. There is still this pressure from Western Star on Mali saying, "Hey, you need to give the dot back to someone else," and Mali isn't incredibly happy about that, but they are kind of just doing whatever it takes to survive at this point. So they end up waving. That is the only other important thing that happened in Africa in the build phase, I think. Alright, let's move forward to the spring. Is there anything you want to talk about with regard to the spring, or again, are you happy to skip over it?
I'm happy to skip over the spring in South America. Like, people move closer to me and then I'm gonna die. That's what happens.
Okay, fair enough. And actually,
I mean, you can still show it, let people see the death, whatever, it's fine.
yes. We'll come back here when we have the moves up then. Actually, on my side, there's very little more I need to talk about with regard to this, because I genuinely did just take a backseat. I was like breathing a sigh of relief, because through the entire first year of this game, I had been at my keyboard, like not 24/7, but close to, trying to keep this lock alliance intact and doing all of this stuff. And I can finally sit back and let other people in my alliance do stuff now, and I kind of take advantage of that. I'm not really as involved this year as I was the previous one. And if we move ahead to the moves, the main thing that happens here is that Mandara manages to convince Banda to save them and put them in Azande. And of course, Azande is an unrelated person. The Agadez manages to win their puzzle again and just tells them to support me into Darfur. So I do that. Sorry, they do that, and they get knocked out of here, and Mandara might actually manage to survive in Azande. So well done to Gabriel for managing to get the support negotiated. But yeah, everything else goes according to plan. Kind of amazingly. Nothing really happening here. And Western Drift is actually happening at the same time. You can see all of these units are trying to get back across to trying to get across to South America, and I think might actually manage it. No, they don't manage it on this turn, right? That's 3v3. But yeah, that is what happens here. Oh, I notice you have people helping you. What's going on here?
They figured it'd be easier to take it from me than it would be to take it from Japura.
Ah,
So don't let Japura take it this phase, and then they can take it from me later.
right. But I see Nakugo has taken your support into Goya, so they've left Nakugo open on the same turn.
No, they haven't. It got
Oh.
cut by Japura.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, that doesn't look great. Man, there are so many armies around you. Jeez.
Oh, yeah.
Hmm.
There was no chance of me moving anywhere, you'll notice. Every space adjacent to me got covered.
Yep. People, vultures coming in
yeah.
to see who will get the dots. I'm actually kind of curious who will manage to get the dot here, because there isn't a clear leader for this.
It was the person who used to be in Axura is relevant. So they've got a solid pitch.
Okay, as in the person who used to be in Madeira and went to Exeter.
Yes,
Yeah.
it used to be their dot.
That makes sense. Yeah. But yes, it looks like vultures are descending here. That is pain. Yeah. Let's. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that needs mentioning here. I don't think there is. We'll go ahead and move to the next phase. Right. So you will see I'm now in Darfur. We have Hausa in Mandara. We have Benin in Hausa. That is basically all what we agreed. Agadez has gone north to try and get involved in the north here. There is some negotiation that's going on here, but I'm not entirely sure I remember what it was. So I'm gonna skip out on that for the moment. I can't remember if this unit was moving through here or if it stops. Well, whatever was going on, like Evergreen all agreed with themselves on this one. So, yeah, what happens going into this next year? Now I have to, like, delve into my memory, because again, this was when I was paying less attention to the game. I think basically nothing happens this year. Everyone is just going, okay, we're happy with the status quo, we've all agreed to this. We will just stay in this position. And so, if we go ahead to the moves, you will see it is just a whole lot of support holds while Azande just tries to get their center back and doesn't manage. Oh, right. This was agreed. This player wanted to die and just gave their center over to Gondar. So, yeah, they end up going to 2. I don't know how Gondar managed that, but well played to them.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes people just want out.
Oh, yeah, okay, no, I did miss something important, which was that Mali tries to get away with not giving their dot away on this turn, and then in the fall turn realizes that it is inevitably going to happen. So they go back to Mali and let Timbuktu take the dot. Yeah, respect to Taznica for trying to hold on to that one, but I don't think it was ever going to happen.
I mean, you got to make a play for something, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, that is true. And I think Western Drift actually manages to achieve something here and get into Moritstad. That is a lot of supports.
Sure looks like it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So the turn you die, which is very sad. That is a lot of supports too. Jeez. Man, you nearly managed to get away. If they had supported in the other way, you would have gotten to Japan.
Oh yeah, look, I knew that this wasn't likely to work, but I gave it a shot, right? I'm not gonna just give up. And I got him to kill himself to help me.
Yeah, he gets walked into behind. Oh no.
Yeah.
Ouch.
And it didn't matter. I was 7. We appreciate your support.
Oh no. But yeah, if they'd have gone in the
not
other
my finest game.
This is
Yeah, but this is public press, man. Obviously, they're not going in the other way. But yeah.
Yep. I do want to just say for a moment that, like, Ezio does well at almost every Chaos game he plays. This is a very big outlier. But unfortunately, Chaos
that's
is
a stretch,
Chaos.
CaptainMeme.
That is not.
I've had a lot of Chaos games that I just get absolutely wrecked on.
Okay, all the Chaos games we've covered, which are 2.
Yeah, like the more recent Chaos games, I have a pretty good record in.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say this tracks with previous Chaos games as well. It tends to be that if I can make it out of the first year without getting stabbed, it goes well. But I just get stabbed a lot in the first year. So,
yeah.
It is what it is. There's Chaos. Lots of people get stabbed in year 1.
Yeah, that's exactly it, right? Things like this happen in Chaos. People die at a moment's notice. You don't... like. It's so hard to... This type of game is so hard to play and incredibly hard to play well. I tend to survive them by not getting onto many SCs and just focusing on my own survival, right? As you mentioned, you were looking to win the game, and so you needed to be that Queen Bee and get into 2 dots initially, and I think that was a huge reason why you die here. If you go for that high percent, like, for that huge risk play, then you're more likely to get killed. And in Chaos, you're quite likely to get killed anyway. That's it's just the thing that happens.
I mean, any game where, like, if you leave your home supply center open, people will just take it a lot, right? Mm-hmm. And I just left it open. Yep. So. Yeah.
And this hopefully goes to show people that these games are real. We don't, like, we don't manipulate them to make me or Ezio win or anything. We are genuinely just trying our hardest to win these games. We don't have real plot armor. We just survive because we do genuinely play diplomacy quite well sometimes. Although you might not know
it's
it from
just
looking
star
at my
power.
other games.
The only reason either of us have had any success in these games is because people like the YouTubers. They like listening to the YouTubers irrationally. That's it.
Oh man! So this game is absolutely a thing against that, right? Because I think they invited like a bunch of different YouTubers to it. I don't even know where they were. I think so. Florida Man was in this game somewhere, I think, and died in year 1. King of Prussia died.
Florida Man was in the Caribbean.
Okay.
Was it year 1?
Maybe.
I think maybe they got St. Augustine. Florida Man might have had St. Augustine.
That's very possible, because then he would be in Florida, yeah. I think... Yeah. I'm fairly sure King of Prussia died really early in this game as well. I don't know what happened to Salt. Like, where Salt was.
Salt was in the Hornet's Nest.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah, Salt was one of the Hornets people. He was down here. He was one of these guys. I forget which one, but he was, I think, further south. I forget, but Salt was down here.
Mm-hmm.
And was like, oh, Ezio's in that alliance? Well.
So did he die immediately, or was that, like...
I don't know.
Well, yeah, we don't know. But the YouTubers got massacred in this game. That is just a general rule of like, everyone died who was going to make content. And then the nice thing about that is we got a bunch of people who hadn't made videos before making content instead. So go and watch their videos. They're linked in the description.
Except for you, CaptainMeme. Notably, you're on 2 dots. It's the end of the 2nd year. You're in an alliance. You've got people giving away their dots left and right. You're in a good spot. Yeah.
I'm very happy. It is notable to say it is year 2. There are 11 years total. It is not guaranteed that I make it all the way, especially with just 2 dots. But right now, I'm feeling really good about my position. So there's that. Okay, so with that, let's move ahead. Okay. Right, so we will go ahead to winter here. My build is pretty obvious. I'm gonna build an army, right? There's actually not
Right?
really much in the way of negotiation that happens with me here, except that these three alliances around here, TCL, GP, and Evergreen, are all looking at what they should do next. And there is a kind of obvious target if we are all looking together. For one, the Mandara isn't really in any alliance. TCL like them, but they're not in an alliance yet, which means that me, as part of GP, am going, hey, we should go this way, because that's a dot that we could get that wouldn't annoy anyone, right? And then other people are looking at Pirate Parley, because Pirate Parley have mostly fleets. They annoyed Evergreen by going in on them in the first year with our coalition. And TCL are also eyeing up Pirate Parley as a potential source of dots. So there's this big negotiation that happens over should we go in on Pirate Parley. The only real sticking point was the fact that Warsangali is very close with the Evergreen people, and Warsangali is in Pirate Parley. But that was solved by basically saying we'll exclude Warsangali from the killing. Like, they can survive and join Evergreen or whatever. They didn't want to join Evergreen, but they just wanted to stay friends with Evergreen and be in Pirate Parley, but basically they were forced to by Evergreen saying, hey, you're going to join us because we want you to stay alive. Yeah. So we agree this thing of the 2-2-2 split, which is the so GP will get 2 of the dots from Pirate Parley, Evergreen will get 2 of the dots from Pirate Parley, and TCL will get 2 of their dots. And that includes the one that Mandara is currently in, notably. And that's going to be very relevant in negotiations going forth. But that will be something for next time, because we are just going to do the winter this turn. You can see I build an army, which is to be expected. Everyone in this area builds armies because, you know, armies are what people want. Notably, this player has now renamed himself to Nigeria, because you're allowed to do that. If you get to 2 dots, you can choose a regional nickname. They build an army as well, which I think was agreed, but I can't remember why we agreed to it. It feels like Ezio, I assume you would have wanted them to build a fleet there if you're in their alliance, right?
Probably, but who's your next target?
I mean, it's a good...
Actually, I think it's a fleet, because their army is probably just going to go to Loango, and a fleet can help out there anyways, so yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. I think the general reasoning was South Atlantic is already packed. We don't need more fleets to be going this way. But I really don't know why we let them get away with that build. I think they made a video themselves about this, so maybe they talk about it in that. But yeah, so this is the, again, 2-2 split is the thing to keep in mind for next time. I did want to briefly look at the alliance map again. So if we go through to, this is the winter before, we go through to the spring here, and then fall, there we go. So this is the current alliance map. That's a bigger Pirate Parley than I remember. I guess Pirate Parley owned all of this. Alright, that is more than I recall. But yeah, you will note Mandara being their own thing here. I wanted to talk very briefly about 2 things that had nothing to do with me in this game, basically, and that were completely side points, but were memes, and that I think people wanted me to put in the video, so I will go ahead and do it. The first is that this alliance over here, Super Canada, I did not know they split into 2 at this point, that's very interesting, but they speed ran bureaucracy. They were hilarious. in the very first winter of the game, they had a massive number of people in their alliance, and they had this giant spreadsheet with a ton of proposals and the way that every single person in their alliance voted on every single one of those proposals. I'll post a screenshot of that here. But it was the most hilarious thing, at least off the bat, to me. I absolutely loved it. So well done to you guys for being so bureaucratic. I don't remember if it works out for you, but hey. And the other thing is, over here you will notice the Holy Roman Empire. They are kind of small, but they do exist. They were a little bit larger earlier in the game, if I recall correctly. In the first year, they formed with the intention of being the same as the Holy Roman Empire was in actual history, with like a bunch of satellite states, some major electors, and then those electors elect like the head of the Holy Roman Empire, and that person decides what they all do. So for some reason, they at me in the first year and say, hey, do you want to be one of our electors? And I went, yes, sure. And so I became an official elector of the Holy Roman Empire in the first year. And I remain an elector of the Holy Roman Empire for as long as either I or the Holy Roman Empire exist. I'm not going to be specific on which of those it is. So I am slightly involved in European politics, even though I'm not really paying much attention, and I end up just voting with the majority on all of their decisions. Yeah. That is basically it. Ezio, is there anything more you wanted to talk about with regards to this?
This was a really cool game. Glad that I got to be part of it. Sorry that I wasn't part of it for longer than this, but sometimes that happens. Can't win them all.
Yeah, that's the way of things with Chaos. But yeah, it's an incredibly cool experience. I do also want to say, like, the way that these games scale with like biggest game of all time and all that, I feel like the 81 player game and the 345 player game, from an individual perspective, they're not actually very different, right? I don't know if you'd agree with that, Ezio. Would you?
I feel like they were quite different. The 81 person game felt small enough to me that I could actually track everything of relevance. Like, not just the stuff that was relevantly local to me that might affect it. Like in the 81 person game, the stuff in the corner of the other side of the map, like what was going on in the northern parts of Africa, still affected me, and I could still track it. In this game, it got big to the point that I did not care at all what was happening in Europe. I was very confident that would not really affect me in any way whatsoever, and I couldn't keep up with it even if I'd wanted to.
Yes.
And that to me is a line. At some point it reached, I can't keep track of everything and I don't want to or need to. I felt that way in the 7 Days of Chaos as well.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think that one reached the point where I can't track it. And so the difference between these two is more minor, but definitely the difference between the first 81, the I forget what it was called, 6 Weeks of Chaos, was that one felt quite different. And in my opinion, I think that one was actually the perfect. It was so big that there's enough chaos that like it's massive and crazy, but also not absolutely insane. That said, I'm sure it's just going to get bigger. I'm anticipating 1,000 person variant at some point, and won't that be insane?
Blister's Chaos when. Oh god.
Please
right.
no.
But
Why did you say that? You can't say that. No. Well, you're editing this. You gotta cut that out. No. Because I know for a fact people are gonna be like, oh yeah, you should do Blister's Chaos. No.
Let's say it's 100k sub special, because then that will never happen and we'll be fine. Right? Alright, yeah. So yeah, what I was meaning to say with just the whole thing of scale is the actual. I think you're absolutely right that the 81 player game was more of a different vibe because it was small enough to track. 7 Doc was a better reference for this, But the actual player number beyond a certain point doesn't matter that much for the individual experience. Once you get above like 150 players, you're not going to be paying attention to the rest of the board. So for me, it's like this is the area that I'm looking at for most of the game. For Ezio, it would have been this area if he'd survived a little bit longer, right? The way that this is different, for one, it's really cool to look at maps like this and see how much was going on everywhere else. But it also gives all of those other people stories that they tell. And so I recommend so much going and watching those videos that are in the description, because you will get a completely different story that is not covered, that might be completely disjoint from everything that we're doing over here, right? So please go and check them out. I think that it would be, it's a very cool thing to go and watch all of these different perspectives on what's going on everywhere else in the world. And yeah, I think that's basically everything from me. Ezio, is that everything from you for this?
Sounds good to me.
All right, well, that's where we'll call part 1 then. We will see you in part 2 of World of Chaos.